Welcome to Amateur Redneck Workshop. We're going to continue on with looking at the Evolution EVOSAW380. Now you got all the details and specifications, well most of them anyway, in the first part. In this part we're going to get right down to the tacks and start cutting metal with it. Let's just get on with our checkout here. Our next step will be, of course, to cut some metal. We'll start with easy, soft stuff, thin, and work our way up to some big boy metal. What do you think? Hold on, let me get an extension card. Alright, so in the spirit of things, they gave us this for round objects. So we'll just slide it right down on there, and we'll get this round object, which is a piece of tubing that I had used to make my, what was it? The plastic extruder. I guess you could call it an extruder. Now that's up in the air. I'm going to move that down. I'm going to turn this guy around. Make him sit closer to the bottom. And they tell you there's a certain minimum amount to have sticking out to the side here, which I think is about 1 inch. So I would suggest that you kind of listen to what they say, because they built it and they ought to know. Alright, we'll go ahead and go with it. What do you think? Pierre, are you ready? Pierre, put down the beer and the peppers and pay attention, okay? Pay attention, Pierre. Check it out. I would recommend hearing protection when you use this, and I'm going to go get some. Alright, this is the piece that got cut off, and I may wind up talking too loud because I can't hear myself with these earmuffs, but let's see how straight it is. That looks pretty darn straight to me. I don't know, what do you think? What do you think, Pierre? And that's a nice slick shiny cut. My bandsaw didn't do that. Alright, so apparently if you just back up on this thing and let go of stuff. The next thing we ought to cut is a small piece of bar, and it's round, so we'll leave their little round thing in there. So I think you ought to, at the very least, when you first get something, you should follow the book. Don't deviate from it until later on when you're an acknowledged master of the thing. According to the scale, it's lined up square, and I think it must be because that piece of tubing was square. Alright, here we go. One thing for sure, you want something back there to catch the pieces that fly off. Now I gotta go find that thing. Take a nap. Alright, this is the piece that I cut off. I notice it leaves a little burr right on the edge, but so does most other things. Let's see what it looks like up against my square. Looks pretty good. My bandsaw, get it down here where you can see it. I think that looks pretty good. My bandsaw is not accustomed to cutting that square. So we're going to cut some other stuff. But we're gonna. This thing isn't. This isn't a aluminum cutting blade. This is a steel cutting blade. But just for the heck of it, I'm going to cut this piece of aluminum, 6061 stuff. So, lifting that up. Take the little attachment out. Stick my piece of aluminum in. about an inch of it hanging past where I think the blade's going to be. Now they said, they've got a nice video that shows you all these things. This is the right way to cut flat piece, standing up straight. Goes against, you know, my instincts, but by golly, they built it, so they ought to know, right? Got a piece of aluminum just went flying off. The spot where I intend to store this saw would be inconvenient for things to go flying off the back, so I'm going to have to put a little shield there to keep things from doing that. Is that a nice looking cut? Let's see if it's square. I have to kind of shorten this thing up a little bit. Well, what do you think? That looks square to you? What do you think, Pierre? Looks pretty good to me. And that blade wasn't designed to cut aluminum. That's a steel cutting blade. Alright, so it's time for some big boy steel. Here we go. 1.5 mile steel. And it was cut by one of those professional band saws, I think. I don't know how this end got cut. I might have cut it. Alright. Hopefully that's about an inch sticking out in front of the side of the blade. I like that vise. It feels substantial, you know. Alright. Here we go. They're blue and they feel kind of hot when they hit you. But the metal's nice and cool. Got another nice shiny looking cut on it. I had seen one review where the guy said that the blade had a little end play so that it didn't, you know, it had moved side to side some cutting. And it may have done it there, and I just didn't notice. But let's check it here with a square. And I think that's relatively square. Now we got a burr on that side. Not sure about that. Make this shorter so it doesn't interfere with the burr. I think that this thing looks pretty dead burn square to me. I think I'm going to really like it. Now when I start working on the plasma cutter table, I can make square cuts that ought to weld together square and look square and be square, you know. Now I'm going to turn the thing on the table here a little bit so I can pull out that chip pan. A lot of the chips are out here on the top, but there's bound to be a bunch of them down in the pan too. Don't want to knock this in the floor. Stuff that I don't want to knock in the floor, I might as well just put in the floor. I'm going to take the hearing protection off for a second here because I don't know how I'm talking. Alright. Once we got her around, we pull that chip pan out of there. You can see our magnet's got a nice halo of chips on it. And pretty good pile of chips down in there. The white ones are aluminum and the blue ones are steel. At this point I'm pretty sure I really like this saw. Now you can see that it's a little bit messy because I'm going to zoom in there. See, there's chips all over there. And there's chips all on that table. And there's chips all over the floor. So I guess I need to take all that into consideration before I'm sure where I'm going to put it. But I think I'm going to put it on a little file cabinet. We'll take a look at that. I did have the big gray file cabinet up against my little Grizzly there. And I got rid of some junk that was on the floor there and threw some of it out. Some of it I put elsewhere. Moved the horror freight saw down. Moved the gray file cabinet down, and I got that tan cabinet that I had on top of in front of the air conditioner there, which was in the way. I got it and put it there, so that now I've got room to use all the cabinets I own. And the saw, pretty sure it's going to go right here. And I'm pretty sure that that file cabinet is going to wind up with 4 wheels under it, so I can move it around, because if I'm cutting metal and it's going to leave chips on the floor and stuff like I saw there, I don't want it piling up in there where I can't sweep them up, you know. So I've got some casters, and I'm going to make the base and roll that thing around. Should work out really great. So I don't know what you folks think of this saw, but I think it's pretty neat. I like it. I'm relatively sure that I'm going to be happy with this. It looks like it might do all my cutting for me, and if that's the case, well, little horror freight saw may have to go. It'll just be taking up space then. That's how it's going to look when it's stored. I'm going to get a piece of plywood. I don't know, I don't have one big enough, I don't think, on hand. I'll have to go to the store and get one. And the boss lady went shopping, so I'm not sure if I can afford one. But just as soon as I can, I'm going to put a piece of plywood under the cabinet with 4 casters on it. I've got the casters. And then I'm going to put a piece of plywood under here, just to keep the chips from falling in all those holes, and to keep the top from making a rumbling noise. I wanted to see how big the base is. I tried to look this up online, and I couldn't find it anyplace. But the base is about 19 inches long by 11.5 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall. I had to look all. Normally I've got these little horror freight tape measures everywhere I look. Today I couldn't find one at all. Here it is. Okay, so that's one thing that horror freight does good. They make good tape measures. I'll give them credit for that. So I guess you guys are probably figuring I'm getting kind of uppity here with all this high-tech saw and stuff, and maybe I am, but an awful lot of this is due to you guys watching my channel, and a lot of you guys buying t-shirts. That's how come it's sitting there, and I want you to know I really do appreciate it too. Well, I've got quite a few casters. Some of them came from auctions, and some of them are, I don't know, but they're not all the exact same size. So I think what I'll get is more like this. I'll go to horror freight. Well, not rusty like that. I don't necessarily want them rusty, but that particular design. And get me a piece of plywood to go on the bottom and a piece of plywood to go on the top. Now, if you buy a saw like this, go on their website and look at all their videos that show you how to use it. I would have used it wrong if I hadn't looked at the videos, and when you use something wrong, you don't get the good results. Well, it come along deer hunting time, and Bubba wanted to go deer hunting, and so did all his cousins, you know, all of them named Bubba. So him and Bubba Joe and Bubba Don and Bubba Bill, all of them, you know, there's a few others, they all got together to go, you know, out to their deer lace, you know, and do a little hunting. Well, it seems like nobody liked to cook. You know, it was the worst job there because you had to get up before everybody else and fix breakfast, and then about in the middle of the morning, you had to leave your deer blind and go back to camp, and get your dinner cooked. And in the middle of the afternoon, you had to leave your deer blind, go back and cook supper. So they made an agreement that they'd draw straws to see who was the first cook, and then the first guy to complain would have to take his place. So they all drew straws. Bubba Joe was the one that drew the short straw, and he wound up being the cook. So they got out there and they cooked. Bubba Joe's not no idiot. He figures, well, I'll do a little sorry job of cooking, and somebody's got to complain. So first day out there, he burned about half the stuff, and everybody come in and ate it. And nobody said a word, So he's got to think about it. At noon, he went in, he put too much salt in everything and some jalapeno peppers and so on. Everybody come in and ate. They kind of mumbled a little bit, but nobody said nothing about the food. Come supper time, he was starting to think, he's never going to get it done. And then he had this bright idea. He'd seen a moose walking out there. He went and followed the moose tracks, and sure enough, there were some moose droppings on the ground. He picked those up and he made a stew, half moose droppings and half stew. Folks come in for supper, and he served that up. Our hero Bubba, he poof, man. So this stuff tastes like moose droppings, but it's good. Well, that's all, folks. Y'all try to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Leave a comment if you got something to say. And above all, remember, keep on keeping on. Bye now.